Welcome back. House Republicans are sounding the alarm over the Biden administration's plan to undo the Trump administration's Navigable Waters Protection Rule. North Carolina Congressman David Rouzer is leading that effort, with 126 House members again outlining their concerns over the Biden administration's intent to revise the definition of the waters of the United States under the Clean Water Act. Here to discuss this further is the ranking member of the Transportation and Infrastructure, Water Resources and Environment Subcommittee, Congressman David Rouzer himself. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be with you, Stephanie.
So for our viewers who are unfamiliar, tell us more about what the 2020 Navigable Waters Protection Rule is that the EPA is looking to undo.
Well, this has been an issue for some time, and originally the Obama administration decided to define what waters of the United States is, which needed to be done. The only problem is they went way too far. And so, for example, to put in perspective a real-life example for your viewers, if you're a farmer and you have a major rainstorm and you have a portion of your field that fills with water, and then it, of course, drains off into the local creeks, streams, rivers, they would consider that a water of the U.S. under the Clean Water Act. That was the original Obama rule. Well, that caused all kinds of consternation all around the country. You had Democrat mayors, you had Republican mayors, you had farmers, you had home builders, you had developers, you had all kinds of businesses that would have been very negatively impacted because for the first time ever, on their personal property, they would have had to deal with a federal bureaucrat in terms of dealing with the Clean Water Act. And that, quite frankly, is very cumbersome to business. In fact, if you look at it across the board, it's rules and regulations, onerous and complicated rules and regulations that make it so difficult for business, in addition to onerous taxes, of course. But rules and regulations are basically the million cuts that kill a business. And so when the Trump administration came in, we encouraged them to take a look at this Obama-era rule. They did, and they revised it, and they scaled it back and put common sense policies in place. Now that we have the Biden administration in office, they are looking to undo the changes that the Trump administration made to the rule and basically trying to go back to the original Obama-era rule, which would be very detrimental to business and farmers and localities all across the country.
And as you mentioned, because this has been a back and forth issue where in the Obama administration, former Utah Senator Orrin Hatch, he even tried to repeal this rule. So we're having this kind of back and forth, but you're leading again this effort and sent a letter to EPA Administrator Michael Regan and the Acting Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works about the devastating effects if the Biden administration continues with its plan to redefine waters of the United States. Tell us more about some of the repercussions. You were talking about farmers earlier. Tell us more about what sort of impact that would have on them.
Well, the real life impact is that they'd have to deal with the federal bureaucracy in order to make decisions impacting their personal property and their growing operations, which obviously the more rules and regulations that you have in place, the more onerous it is to make a profit and to do business and to just do ordinary things on your personal property that you previously, at least up until the Obama era rule, had it taken full effect, they were going to be in a real problem in terms of dealing with federal bureaucrats, in terms of the extra cost, in terms of the cumbersome nature, of these rules and regulations. Again, rules and regulations, you need rules of the road. You need to know what side of the road to drive on, for example, but you don't need a stop sign every 10 feet. And that's been a problem, universal problem all across government at the local level, state level, and the federal level in particular. And this would have just been a regulatory burden on steroids. We don't need to go back to the original Obama-era rule, and that's what many of my Democrat colleagues in the Congress want to do.
And you will be leading a Water Resources and Environment Subcommittee hearing Wednesday on the administrative agency's plan for the upcoming fiscal year. What can we expect will come out of this hearing?
Well, we had a hearing a couple weeks ago with the Army Corps of Engineers as well. This week, we'll have the EPA before us. We talked a good little bit about what they plan to do with waters of the U.S. Of course, the Army Corps was not very forthcoming, and the EPA, I don't expect they're going to be any more specific about their particular plans, but we're certainly going to make the point that if we go back to the original Obama era rule, there are going to be some significant consequences for the economy, for our farmers, for home builders, for realtors. It really has a strong ripple effect all throughout the economy. And of course, this is a time when we need to be growing the economy. We need to keep the tax cuts in place. We need to keep the regulatory reforms that were made under the Trump administration in place. And we need to continue those efforts. We don't need to backtrack on those efforts if we're going to get this economy back to where it needs to be.
And you mentioned that in your letter for the administration to focus more on economy and inflation rather than something like this, where, as you said, it will have a ripple effect and it will really affect farmers and Americans throughout the U.S. Of course, we'll be on the lookout to see what developments come out of that hearing. Again, Congressman David Rouzer, thank you so much again for your time.
Good to be with you, Stephanie.
Thank you.